When Mr. Calloway asked me to stay after class, I never expected what happened behind that locked door. His intense gaze burned through me as he stepped closer, his fingers brushing mine with electric heat. "You're holding back, Lila," he whispered, his voice dripping with dangerous promise. In that moment, I knew this forbidden attraction could destroy us both, but the thrill of our secret was too intoxicating to resist. One touch, one kiss, one reckless decision that would change everything. Please don't forget to subscribe and comment, and press the bell icon for more interesting. The classroom was so quiet I could hear the second hand ticking on the wall clock behind me. Late afternoon sunlight streamed through the blinds, painting stripes of gold across the worn wooden floor. My fingers tightened around the strap of my backpack as Mr. Calloway turned the lock on the classroom door with a soft but decisive click. "Have a seat, Lila," he said, gesturing to the chair beside his desk. His voice was calm, professional, but something in his dark brown eyes made my stomach do a slow flip. I sat down carefully, my school skirt rustling against the plastic seat. The classroom felt different with just the two of us, bigger somehow, and charged with an energy I didn't understand. The familiar smells of dry erase markers and old textbooks were undercut by something else, the clean, spicy scent of his cologne. Mr. Calloway leaned back against his desk, crossing his arms over his broad chest. The sleeves of his button-down shirt were rolled up to his elbows, revealing strong forearms dusted with dark hair. He was younger than most of our teachers, maybe early 30s, and it showed in the way he carried himself, with an easy confidence that made him the subject of countless whispered conversations in the girls' locker room. "I wanted to talk to you about your last essay," he said, reaching for a folder on his desk. He pulled out my paper. I could see my handwriting in purple ink covering the pages. The one about Gatsby's obsession with the past. I swallowed hard. Was there something wrong with it? He smiled then, a slow curve of his lips that made my pulse jump. "Quite the opposite. You have a remarkable way with words, Lila. The depth of your analysis." He shook his head slightly. "It's rare to find a student who understands literature the way you do." A warm flush crept up my neck. "Thank you," I murmured, dropping my gaze to my hands folded in my lap. "But," he continued, and I looked up to find him studying me with an intensity that made my breath catch, "I get the sense you're holding back. There's passion in your writing, but it's restrained, controlled." He took a step closer, and I could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes. "I wonder, what would happen if you let go?" The air between us seemed to thicken. When he reached out to hand me the paper, his fingers brushed against mine, sending an unexpected jolt of electricity up my arm. The contact lasted only a second, but it was enough to make my skin tingle where we'd touched. "I'd love to see what you're truly capable of," he said softly, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "When you're not afraid to express yourself fully." Outside, a locker slammed somewhere down the hall, the sound echoing through the empty corridor. The noise should have broken the spell, but instead it only made the space between us feel more intimate, more secret. The late afternoon light had deepened to a rich amber, casting long shadows across the classroom floor. I knew I should leave. The final bell had rung 20 minutes ago, and my mom would be wondering where I was. But the thought of standing up, of walking out that door and breaking whatever this was between us, I found I couldn't do it. Mr. Calloway's gaze never left mine. "You don't have to be afraid, Lila," he murmured. "Not with me." And in that moment, with a golden light painting his handsome features and his words curling warm around my heart, I believed him. This was our secret. And secrets, once shared, could never be unshared. The next week passed in a haze. Every time I walked into Mr. Calloway's classroom, my stomach twisted with equal parts anticipation and nerves. He never treated me differently in front of the other students. His demeanor remained perfectly professional, but sometimes when no one was looking, I'd catch him watching me with that same intense gaze from our after-school meeting. On Thursday, he asked me to stay behind again. "I need help organizing some materials for next week's unit," he announced to the class as the bell rang. "Lila, since your essay was so strong, maybe you could assist me?" My heart hammered against my ribs as my classmates filed out, tossing curious glances my way. Jessica, my lab partner, raised an eyebrow at me but didn't say anything. When the last student left, Mr. Calloway turned the lock on the door with the same quiet click as before. The sound sent a shiver down my spine. "Actually," he said, walking toward me with slow, measured steps, "I wanted to give you this." He pulled a book from his messenger bag, a worn copy of The Great Gatsby, with a faded blue cover. "It's my personal copy," he explained, handing it to me. Our fingers brushed again, and this time neither of us pulled away immediately. "I've made notes in the margins over the years. Thoughts about the symbolism, the language. I think you'd appreciate them." I took the book carefully, running my fingers over the cracked spine. When I opened it, a slip of paper fluttered out. I caught it before it hit the ground. It was a note, written in the same neat handwriting as his comments on my essays. Asterisk, "Some stories are meant to be read between the lines. Meet me Saturday, 2 p.m. at the old bookstore on Elm Street. J***. I looked up, my mouth suddenly dry. Mr. Calloway. No, James, I realized with a start, was watching me with an expression I couldn't quite decipher. "This is..." I began, but words failed me. "Dangerous?" he supplied, one corner of his mouth quirking up. "Reckless? Forbidden." He took a step closer, close enough that I could see the faint stubble along his jawline, could smell the faint hint of coffee on his breath. Or maybe... inevitable? The book felt heavy in my hands, the note like a burning secret against my palm. Every rational thought told me to give it back, to walk away and forget this ever happened. But when I looked into his eyes, all I could think was, what if I didn't? The bell above the door jingled as I stepped into the bookstore on Elm Street. The air smelled of old paper and leather, with an undercurrent of vanilla from the candles burning near the register. It was the kind of place time forgot, all dark wood shelves and rolling ladders, with shafts of sunlight cutting through the dust motes in the air. I spotted him immediately. James sat in a worn armchair in the classics section, a book open in his lap. He wasn't wearing his usual button-down and tie, just a simple gray sweater that stretched across his broad shoulders, paired with dark jeans. He looked younger like this, more approachable, more human. He glanced up as I approached, and the smile that spread across his face made my stomach flip. "You came." "I almost didn't," I admitted, gripping the strap of my purse tighter. He closed his book and set it aside. "But you're here now." We sat in silence for a moment, surrounded by centuries of stories about love and loss and everything in between. Somewhere in the distance, a clock ticked steadily. "Why me?" I finally asked, the question that had been burning in my mind all week. James studied me for a long moment before answering. "Because when I read your writing, I see someone who understands that the best stories aren't about right or wrong," he said quietly. "They're about truth. About passion." He reached out, hesitantly, and brushed a strand of hair behind my ear. His touch was feather-light, but it sent sparks dancing across my skin. "And I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since the first essay you turned in." His confession hung between us, dangerous and thrilling. I knew I should pull away, should leave and never look back. But the way he looked at me, like I was something rare and precious, made me want to stay. When he leaned in, I didn't move. When his lips met mine, the world fell away. And just like that, we crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. The weeks that followed were a blur of stolen glances and secret meetings. We were careful, always meeting in places where we wouldn't be recognized, keeping our distance at school. But every touch, every whispered conversation only made the fire between us burn hotter. One rainy afternoon, we found ourselves alone in the school's rarely used music room. The steady patter of rain against the windows created a cocoon of privacy as James pulled me close, his hands warm against my waist. "Tell me to stop," he murmured against my lips. I couldn't. His kiss was intoxicating, each one deeper than the last. When his fingers traced the hem of my sweater, my breath hitched. This was dangerous. This was reckless. This was everything I never knew I wanted. Part 5. The consequences. But secrets have a way of coming to light. A classmate saw us leaving the bookstore together. Whispers started. Then the rumors began to spread like wildfire through the halls of our small-town high school. When the principal called me into his office, I knew our time was up. James was gone the next day. No warning. No goodbye. Just an empty desk and a hole in my chest that refused to heal. I never saw him again. But sometimes when I'm alone at night, I take out that worn copy of Gatsby and trace the notes he left in the margins. And I wonder if somewhere out there, he's thinking of me too. Our little secret may be over, but some stories never truly end. They just become part of who we are.